Christmas Day, a time for joy, connection, and celebration. For nearly 300 passengers aboard Northwest Airlines Flight 253 bound for Detroit, it began like any other holiday journey. The hum of the engines filled the cabin as families exchanged holiday wishes and travelers settled into their seats, looking forward to reuniting with loved ones. The flight, originating in Lagos, Nigeria, with a stopover in Amsterdam, carried a mix of individuals, parents, children, students, and seasoned travelers, all anticipating the warmth of the season. But amid the holiday cheer and the ordinary rhythm of air travel, one man sat quietly, his demeanor unremarkable, his face betraying no emotion. He was just another passenger in the eyes of those around him. Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab, a name that, at the time, meant nothing to anyone on board. Clad in simple clothing, he was unassuming, blending effortlessly into the crowd. Yet, as the plane soared thousands of feet above the Atlantic, he carried with him a secret, one that could have changed the course of history. Hidden within his belongings, strapped to his body in a way no one could suspect, was a device carefully designed to unleash devastation. A bomb, a deadly creation constructed to bypass security, to detonate mid-flight, and to bring down the aircraft in a fiery explosion. A plan meticulously orchestrated by one of the world's most dangerous terrorist organizations. And Abdelmutalab wasn't just a participant, he was their chosen instrument, a man willing to sacrifice his life in the name of their cause. What unfolded over the next few hours would send shockwaves through the aviation world, spark urgent debates about global security, and raise questions about how such a plot could come so close to succeeding. It was a plan that should have worked, a scheme calculated to perfection. But in its execution, something unexpected happened, something that ensured Flight 253 would make headlines, not for the tragedy that could have been, but for the heroism and quick thinking that averted catastrophe. This is the story of Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab, a young man drawn into the world of extremism, who came within moments of carrying out a devastating act of terror. This is a story of failure, his failure to execute the mission, and the extraordinary chain of events that saved nearly 300 lives that day. But to understand how it all unfolded, we must first understand him, his journey, and the chilling plot that brought him to the skies above Detroit that fateful Christmas Day. If you're captivated by true crime stories like this one, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us uncover and share stories that matter. Now, let's dive into the background of Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab. To understand how a quiet, well-educated young man from a privileged Nigerian family ended up at the center of a global terror plot, we must go back to where his story began. Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab was born in Kaduna, Nigeria, in 1986. His father, Alhaji Umaru Mutalab, was one of the wealthiest and most influential men in the country, a former minister and a prominent banker who oversaw massive investments across Africa. The family lived a life of comfort and prestige, far removed from the hardships that often fuel radicalization. Abdelmutalab's early years gave no indication of what was to come. As a child, he was described as quiet and intelligent, deeply curious about the world around him. His upbringing was steeped in Islamic tradition, but it was balanced by exposure to global ideas and modern education. He attended elite schools in Nigeria before moving to Togo for secondary education, where he excelled academically. His path seemed destined for success, following in the footsteps of his father. But even in those early years, there were signs of something brewing beneath the surface, an interest in religion that grew beyond the boundaries of his upbringing. While his peers focused on academics and social connections, Abdelmutalab began to withdraw. Friends and family would later describe him as increasingly isolated, consumed by a rigid interpretation of faith that set him apart. He became deeply critical of Western culture, seeing it as corrupt and immoral. This mindset followed him to London, where he enrolled at University College London to study mechanical engineering. Far from home, away from the watchful eyes of his family, Abdelmutalab's transformation accelerated. He sought out like-minded individuals, immersing himself in online forums and attending lectures by radical clerics. Among these influences was Anwar al-Awlaki, a charismatic preacher whose sermons framed jihad as a divine obligation. For Abdulmutallab, these teachings were more than inspiring, they were a call to action. By the time he graduated, Abdulmutallab's worldview had shifted dramatically. He cut ties with many of his old friends, choosing instead to connect with extremists who encouraged him to take the next step. His father, growing increasingly concerned about his son's behavior, made a fateful decision. He reported Abdulmutallab to Nigerian authorities and warned the U.S. Embassy that his son might pose a threat. But despite these warnings, Abdulmutallab's name failed to raise enough red flags. He traveled freely, slipping through the cracks of intelligence systems designed to prevent such individuals from boarding planes. In the shadows, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula was already grooming him for a mission. They saw in him the perfect operative, young, educated, and with a passport that allowed him to move undetected. In 2009, Abdulmutallab vanished from his family's radar. He traveled to Yemen, where he underwent training in explosives and suicide missions. Here, the final piece of the puzzle was put into place, the creation of a bomb small enough to evade airport scanners yet powerful enough to obliterate a commercial aircraft. Hidden within his underwear, this device was his ticket to martyrdom, or so he believed. By December 2009, the plan was set in motion. Abdulmutallab boarded his first flight in Lagos, Nigeria, carrying nothing more than a small carry-on bag and a secret capable of mass destruction. It was a journey that would take him to Amsterdam and, ultimately, onto Northwest Airlines Flight 253. A journey that nearly ended in disaster. The plan was as audacious as it was chilling. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, a group known for its sophisticated and unrelenting pursuit of terror, had devised a new type of weapon, a bomb built from PTN, a powerful explosive that could evade traditional airport security measures. Unlike conventional devices, this bomb was concealed in an ordinary pair of underwear, sewn directly into the fabric to avoid detection by metal detectors or pat-downs. Their goal? To strike fear into the hearts of millions by taking down a commercial airliner on one of the busiest travel days of the year, Christmas Day. And for this mission, they chose Farouk Abdulmutallab. Abdulmutallab was an ideal candidate. With no criminal record and a history of international travel, he would attract little scrutiny. His wealthy background and university education made him the perfect sleeper operative, blending seamlessly into the diverse crowd of travelers boarding Northwest Airlines Flight 253 in Amsterdam. But behind this facade of normalcy lay months of careful planning. Abdulmutallab had been trained in Yemen by the same operatives responsible for other high-profile attacks. They taught him not only how to use the device but how to maintain his composure, how to sit unnoticed among passengers, and how to activate the bomb at precisely the right moment to ensure maximum destruction. On December 25, 2009, the operation began. Abdulmutallab boarded Flight 253 carrying only a small bag and the explosives strapped beneath his clothing. The flight, bound for Detroit, carried 289 passengers and crew. Families chatted, children played with Christmas gifts, and weary travelers closed their eyes for a few hours of rest. For most on board, it was a routine journey, a quiet pause in the chaos of the holiday season. But for Abdulmutallab, every moment was calculated. As the plane climbed to cruising altitude, he rehearsed the steps in his mind: wait until the aircraft was over U.S. soil, ensure the bomb was armed, and detonated in the heart of the cabin, maximizing casualties and spreading terror worldwide. The hours ticked by. Somewhere over the Atlantic, as the flight neared Detroit, Abdulmutallab decided it was time. He reached into his waistband, activating the device. In that instant, he expected flames, an explosion, and the sudden, horrifying descent of the aircraft. But something went wrong. The bomb malfunctioned. Instead of detonating as intended, the PTN ignited, causing a small fire that scorched his clothing and legs but failed to produce the catastrophic blast. Smoke began to fill the cabin, and passengers, initially confused, soon realized something was terribly wrong. Amid the chaos, it was the quick actions of passengers and crew that prevented further harm. Jasper Scheringa, a Dutch filmmaker seated nearby, sprang into action, leaping over seats to tackle Abdelmutalab and extinguish the flames with the help of others. Together, they subdued the would-be bomber, holding him down until the plane could make an emergency landing in Detroit. The danger was neutralized, but the shockwaves of the failed attack were only beginning to spread. In that moment, Abdelmutalab had failed to carry out his mission. But his actions exposed glaring vulnerabilities in global aviation security and sent a stark warning about the lengths to which terror networks would go to sow fear. When Northwest Airlines Flight 253 touched down in Detroit on Christmas Day, it was far from a routine landing. The plane was met by a fleet of emergency vehicles, their lights flashing against the snowy Michigan sky. Inside the aircraft, passengers remained shaken but alive, processing the near-catastrophic events that had just unfolded. Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab, his legs burned and his bomb useless, was subdued and quickly taken into custody by federal agents. In those tense first moments, investigators worked to piece together the details. Who was this man? What had he intended to do? And, most urgently, how had he managed to board a plane with an explosive device? The news spread like wildfire, dominating headlines across the globe. A Christmas Day terror plot, thwarted but alarmingly close to success. For many, it was a sobering reminder of vulnerabilities in air travel, vulnerabilities that had persisted despite the sweeping security reforms implemented after September 11. Within hours, law enforcement and intelligence agencies launched a full-scale investigation. Abdelmutalab revealed startling details during initial questioning. He admitted to being trained and equipped by Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, one of the most dangerous terrorist organizations in the world. The group later claimed responsibility for the plot, boasting about their innovative methods and their ability to bypass advanced security systems. The device Abdelmutalab carried, a PTN-based bomb sewn into his underwear, was examined by forensic experts. The findings were unsettling. The bomb was expertly constructed to evade detection by metal detectors and was small enough to go unnoticed during standard pat-downs. Its failure to detonate was not due to any flaw in airport security but rather a technical malfunction in the device itself. In the days following the attack, the aviation industry faced intense scrutiny. How had Abdelmutalab been able to board a flight despite numerous red flags? His name had appeared on a U.S. government database of individuals with suspected ties to terrorism. His father had even reported him to authorities, expressing concerns about his radicalization. Yet these warnings had not resulted in his name being added to a no-fly list. The incident highlighted critical gaps in intelligence sharing and airport screening procedures. Governments around the world scrambled to implement new measures. Advanced imaging body scanners, capable of detecting non-metallic threats, were rapidly deployed at airports. Security protocols were reviewed and tightened, and intelligence agencies faced mounting pressure to improve coordination. While the plot's failure was due in part to the bomb's malfunction, the actions of the passengers and crew were equally crucial in averting disaster. Jasper Scheringa, the Dutch passenger who tackled Abdelmutalab, became an instant hero, hailed for his bravery and quick thinking. His actions, along with the cooperation of other passengers, demonstrated the power of ordinary individuals to prevent extraordinary tragedies. For the survivors of Flight 253, the experience left an indelible mark. Many spoke of their gratitude for being given a second chance, of the terror they felt in those moments, and of the haunting question, what if the bomb had worked? Abdelmutalab's failed attack sent a clear message to the world: terrorism was evolving, and so too must the methods to combat it. Al-Qaeda had demonstrated their ability to innovate, to exploit weaknesses in systems thought to be secure. The attempted bombing underscored the urgency of vigilance, not just by governments but by individuals as well. But it also served as a reminder of resilience. On a day meant for celebration, nearly 300 lives were spared, not by chance but by the combined efforts of passengers, crew, and a failure in the machinery of terror. It was a near tragedy that changed the course of aviation security forever. With Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab in custody, the wheels of justice turned swiftly. The attempted bombing of Northwest Airlines Flight 253 was not only an act of terror but a direct attack on American soil, sparking immediate legal action. Authorities were determined to send a clear message: such acts would be met with the full force of the law. In the hours following his arrest, Abdelmutalab cooperated with federal agents, providing key information about his training and connections. He admitted to being a member of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula and confirmed that the plot was orchestrated by the group. His candor, however, was not born of remorse; it was part of a belief system that glorified martyrdom. This cooperation provided invaluable intelligence, but it also fueled public debate. Critics questioned whether Abdelmutalab should have been immediately read his Miranda rights, arguing that this might have compromised efforts to extract further information about other potential threats. Abdelmutalab faced a litany of charges, including attempted use of a weapon of mass destruction, attempted murder of 289 passengers and crew, conspiracy to commit an act of terrorism. As the case moved forward, prosecutors sought the harshest penalty possible. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Witness testimonies, forensic analysis of the bomb, and Abdelmutalab's own statements painted a damning picture of his intent and actions. In October 2011, Abdelmutalab stood trial in a Detroit federal courtroom. His demeanor was cold and detached, showing no remorse for his actions. Representing himself, he used the trial as a platform to voice his extremist beliefs, declaring allegiance to Al-Qaeda and justifying his attempt to bring down the plane as an act of faith. The trial was brief, thanks to the overwhelming evidence in Abdelmutalab's eventual guilty plea. He admitted to all 8 charges against him, describing his role in the plot in chilling detail. In February 2012, the verdict was delivered. Abdelmutalab was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Judge Nancy Edmonds condemned his actions as among the worst crimes a human being can commit, stating that the sentence reflected the gravity of his offense and the need to deter others from attempting similar attacks. During the sentencing, survivors of Flight 253 had their chance to speak. Their words were a powerful reminder of the human cost of terrorism. Parents spoke of the terror of nearly losing their children. Others recounted the nightmares and anxiety that followed the incident. But through their pain, they also expressed gratitude for being alive and for the swift actions that had saved them. The trial and sentencing of Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab were met with relief, but also with questions. Could this attack have been prevented? Why had warnings from his father and others failed to result in action? And what more could be done to close the gaps in global security systems? For the survivors, the sentencing brought a sense of closure, but the memories of that fateful flight remained. Abdelmutalab's life was now confined to a federal prison cell, but the lessons from his actions would echo far beyond those walls. The attempted bombing of Northwest Airlines Flight 253 was more than an isolated act of terror, it was a wake-up call. It exposed vulnerabilities in global security systems, highlighted the adaptability of terrorist organizations, and served as a grim reminder that the fight against extremism was far from over. At the heart of the case was a troubling question: how did Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab manage to board an international flight with an explosive device? The answer lay in a series of failures across intelligence and security agencies. Abdelmutalab's name was flagged in a U.S. government database after his father reported his growing radicalization. Yet, he was not added to the no-fly list, a critical oversight. Similarly, airport screening procedures at the time were not equipped to detect non-metallic threats like the PTN-based bomb he carried. The attack underscored the need for better communication and coordination between international intelligence agencies. The warning signs were there, but they had not been acted upon swiftly enough. In the aftermath of the incident, aviation security underwent a seismic shift. Governments around the world introduced advanced imaging technology, commonly known as full-body scanners, to detect concealed threats. While these measures were controversial, raising concerns about privacy and efficiency, they became a standard part of the travel experience. New protocols also emphasized the importance of behavioral detection, training airport staff to identify unusual passenger behavior. Additionally, countries enhanced their watch list systems, creating more robust mechanisms to flag and prevent potential threats. The case of Abdelmutalab revealed the innovative tactics employed by terrorist organizations. Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula had demonstrated a willingness to exploit even the smallest weaknesses in global security. Their use of non-metallic explosives and reliance on lone operatives marked a dangerous evolution in their methods. In response, counter-terrorism efforts became more proactive. Intelligence agencies increased surveillance on online forums and extremist networks, focusing on early detection of radicalization. Partnerships between countries grew stronger, emphasizing information sharing as a critical tool in preventing attacks. While systemic reforms were necessary, the incident also highlighted the power of individual action. The bravery of passengers like Jasper Shuringa and the cooperation of the Flight 253 crew were instrumental in preventing disaster. Their quick thinking demonstrated that, even in moments of chaos, ordinary people could rise to extraordinary challenges. For many, the events of Christmas Day 2009 became a symbol of resilience. The passengers and crew of Flight 253 survived not only because of luck but because of human courage and the failure of a terrorist's plan. Their survival sent a message to the world: while terrorism aims to instill fear, it is the collective strength of individuals and communities that ultimately prevails. The case also served as a sobering reminder of the constant vigilance required to protect lives. Terrorism does not remain static, it evolves, adapts, and seeks out weaknesses. But so too must the efforts to combat it. The story of Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab is a testament to the fact that, even in the face of sophisticated threats, determination, preparation, and human courage can thwart the darkest of plans. Christmas Day 2009 could have been remembered as one of the darkest days in aviation history. Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab's mission, fueled by extremism and engineered by Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, had every element of a perfect storm. The bomb was innovative, the warnings had been missed, and nearly 300 lives hung in the balance. Yet, what unfolded that day was a testament to the unpredictable strength of human will. The device failed, but it was the actions of ordinary passengers and crew that ensured every soul on Flight 253 walked off that plane alive. Their courage in the face of an unimaginable threat became a beacon of hope in a world too often shadowed by fear. The aftermath of this near tragedy rippled across the globe. It forced nations to confront weaknesses in their systems, to evolve, and to prepare for an enemy that constantly adapts. The reforms born from this incident, from body scanners to enhanced intelligence cooperation, have made the skies safer for millions of travelers. But this story is more than just a tale of survival or a lesson in vigilance. It is a stark reminder of the complexities of fighting extremism, the delicate balance between security and freedom, and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. Umar Farouk Abdelmutalab sits in a maximum security prison today, his mission a failure, his ideology defeated by the very people he sought to harm. His story is a warning, but it is also a call to action, to never become complacent, to remain vigilant, and to protect the values that unite us. For the passengers of Flight 253, Christmas Day will forever hold a different meaning. It is a day not just of celebration but of gratitude, a day when the course of history could have been rewritten but wasn't. And for the rest of us, it is a reminder that even in the face of the gravest threats, there is hope, there is strength, and there is always the will to overcome. This is just one of many stories that remind us how fragile safety can be, and how critical it is to remain vigilant. If this story moved you, taught you something new, or made you reflect, don't forget to let us know by hitting the like button. Share this video with others to spark awareness about the challenges and triumphs in the fight against extremism. And if you want to dive deeper into stories that shape our world, from near misses like Flight 253 to other untold moments in true crime and history, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our next compelling story. Finally, let's hear your thoughts. What do you think about the lessons we've learned from this incident? Could more have been done to prevent it? Leave a comment below and join the conversation. Together, we can keep these stories alive, honor the bravery of those involved, and learn from the past to build a safer future.